Your word be transformed by what you would say and touch our hearts with. Gracious Lord, we are prepared now to receive your message, to be transformed. And we ask that you do this in spite of me or through me. For this we pray. Amen. The Israelites had just finished the great conquest of the Promised Land. They had been in the wilderness for 40 years. They had seen the parting of both the Jordan River and the Red Sea. They had seen an escape from Egypt. They had seen the walls of Jericho fall at the sound of a trumpet. They had tasted the quail and manna from the ground and drank water from the rock, all in the power of God. They were a people who were fresh off of these spiritual journeys, these spiritual highs, and they could still remember God and their power, in His power. But now they were being told it is time to settle down. It is time to start building up families and work, to make a home, to lay down roots and a foundation. And it would become easy for them when the world turned back to the ordinary, when their lives became everyday routine, to succumb to the gods of their neighbors, the gods of their ancestors, the gods of their former masters. It would be easy to forget all about this God who did all these great and wonderful things. After all, the people of Israel at this time had no idea that the world and that things could operate without direct intervention. It was their experience that if things happened, it was because people made them happen. And so the idea of a single God controlling all the forces of nature was unusual. How could one person be there to cause the sun to rise and to cause the oceans to ebb and rise? How could one person be in charge of the storms and the seasons and the growth? How could one divine being determine who lived and who died in battle, who was successful and who failed? Much easier to listen to the explanations of their neighbors and of their ancestors that there were many gods, that the gods of all these different things took care of it, and that each god had their own job. But they had just experienced the one true God. They had experienced His power in its fullness. As He delivered them from Egypt, as He led them through the wilderness and cared for them, as He helped them conquest the land of Canaan. And so Joshua calls them together. And he gives them a speech. Serve the Lord your God with all sincerity, with all your heart. Or if you will not, then choose now who you will serve. Will you go back to the old ways, to the gods of your ancestors from the other side of the river, from outside the Promised Land? Or will you succumb to the peer pressure of the Amorites and those who live here, of your neighbors? Will you become like those who are around you and the people in this land, the people who you've just defeated, who God removed from this place for you to find your home? As for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. And the people heard Joshua's speech, And they were excited, they were passionate, they still could remember all of the things that God had done, and they say, we will serve the Lord, for He is our God, and He has done great things. And Joshua, this leader who has known the people, who has seen this people forget God time and time again, who has seen this people return to their grumbling and return to their unfaithful ways despite all the miracles. This people who forget when things are not right there in front of them. He questions them and says, no, you will not serve the Lord. You are not able to serve God. For He is a holy God. He is a jealous God. And if you try to serve Him, you will fail. And if you fail, then all the good that He has done to you, it will be taken away, and He will turn away from you. And He will not forgive your transgressions and your sins. It's not going to be easy. You have a track record of failure. But the people are adamant and say, no, we will serve the Lord our God. The God who delivered us from Egypt. The God who cleared out our promised land, who brought us safely through the wilderness and across the seas and the rivers. Joshua says, okay then, we'll make the covenant here and now. And they do. And the people of Israel in that generation, and even in the generation to come, they faithfully serve God. But the Hebrew Bible is a story of a people who serve God and who love God, and in the generation and the successive generation when God does these great things, but it is a story of a people who collectively forget the Lord and who resort back to their old ways and fall to peer pressure and to doing things like those around them do. And now, thousands of years removed from these Israelite people, we don't face the problem of serving other gods per se, but we are a people who knows what it's like to experience the ordinary. We're a people who probably can understand what it is to forget the power of God in our lives. We may have been a people that have gone on mission trips and been so excited and invigorated and ready to do God's work. We may have even been a people who have gone to a church camp, or a people who did a mission project and really got all excited about God, and we're going to do this all the time, and we're going to change our lives. A people who've been baptized and can remember that day and how it felt to feel the presence of God descend upon you, as if nothing could go wrong. We may be a people who've gone on spiritual retreat or heard a wonderful sermon and had been inspired and said, we are going to take what that pastor said, and we are going from this place, and our lives are going to change. We're going to do something differently. And yet we're a people who also know what it's like for those moments to fade, who know what it's like for that great and inspiring sermon, that fire that we felt in that wonderful church service to fade, to be almost snuffed out by the world around us. To go into our ordinary, everyday lives and to forget that we ever made those promises, or that we were ever so so excited about God and the possibilities. The world does not have a power that can equal God by any means. God will always triumph over the world in a direct battle. But what the world does have is the power of the ordinary, the power of causing us to forget because we fall into routine, into the everyday, our work and the good enough. Help us to forget the great and the wonderful. Causes us to settle rather than to strive for something beyond what we see and experience, the comfort of what is here and now is sometimes more alluring than the possibility of what could be. And we return to our old ways, doing things as we've always done them. That's why most New Year's resolutions don't work out. We make these great promises of how we're going to change our lives in the new year, and statistics say by February, most of us have already failed. We forget power and the experience that we have in that present moment as our daily lives slowly knock it away and batter it down. Choosing God is an active choice that we must make each and every day. God will not compete with the ordinary, for God is extraordinary. He is holy, He is divine, He is set apart. He has no reason to compete with the ordinary. And instead, He promises us the extraordinary, that when we choose to follow God, we are not doing so just to serve. We are doing so that we can be there in His presence, that we can experience His power, so that we don't forget what He has already done in our lives. But instead, we are continually reminded of what He is doing, not only in our lives, but in the world. Thousands of people, millions of people, billions of people go to a place of worship each and every week. And they say their prayers to their gods, or they meditate, or they do whatever they want. Coming to a church building and worshiping is the ordinary. But going out into the world where Christ and Jesus is, seeing the power of God firsthand in the lives of others, in your own life, as you look down at your hands and you realize that you're doing what Christ would be doing. That is extraordinary. That is the kind of thing that helps you to not get beaten down by this world and to not forget a God who has led you by pillory fires, a God who can part seas, a God who was willing to come down to earth and die so that you might live. As your pastor, I have the opportunity and the responsibility to be a leader like Joshua. I get to dedicate my life to God. I get to sit there and stand before you each and every week and remind you of what God has done and is doing in the world and in your lives, to try and inspire you. And like Joshua, I cannot promise that it will be easy to follow God. In fact, it is quite difficult to make the choice to follow God in each and every day, to choose not to allow your life to settle into what was, but instead to continue forward in what could be. To not choose to be like all of those people around us who have yet to know God's power, but instead to choose to be a people who are continually in God's presence, not only when we are in this place, but when we are out there in the world. I choose, for me and my house, to serve the Lord our God. And I offer you the opportunity to choose that same path each and every day. I encourage you to do it. I will not lie and say that it is easy. It will be hard. But with each and every decision that you make, with each moment that you choose to strive for the extraordinary to what could be, you fight off the ordinary and everyday routine. When you choose God and choose to look for the extraordinary, you don't see pews that are empty, that are filled just enough to take care of the bills. Instead, you see pews that are full of all the people that could be here, and the children that could build up a Sunday school class. A people that could help build fellowship and family, a people that could help be there and take care of you when you're in need, as you take care of them when they are in need. A community unlike any that this world has ever seen, where people love each other, who they are and as they are. Not for what they've done, not because they have some common blood, or because we've known them our entire lives, but because we see the face of God inside them. You have choices to make each and every day. You can choose the ordinary, the everyday. You can choose the routine. Choose the things of this world. Or you can choose the divine and heaven choices. You can choose to live into the extraordinary, to transcend beyond what is into what could be. As for me and my house, I choose the Lord. I choose the extraordinary. Which will you choose? A God of the extraordinary, or the everyday, ordinary, same old routine? Amen.